Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Artesprix, and in today's video we are going to be creating a fun sublimation headband using the Artesprix sublimation paints, the Artesprix sublimation markers to add a little bit to our designs, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the Artesprix sublimation coloring books. Just quickly on these coloring books, this is something fairly new as I record this video this year for Artesprix. They have designed these coloring books and I showed them in the last video as well, so make sure to check out the YouTube channel for additional videos. But you have designs here. This is sublimation ink, so it will sublimate onto your blank. You have the option of having these printed for you so that you can order them and they can be sent to you if you do not have a sublimation printer. But you also have the option to get it as a digital download. And if you have a sublimation printer, you can print your own coloring book and use these same designs. So in this one, this is the Fall and Halloween sublimation coloring book. This one's a small. I'm going to be using these 2 pages. And you can either use it as a full sheet, or if you order from Artesprix, you can simply slide that little binding off, and then all of these sheets are separate. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually just pull these 2 sheets out. So this came out of the sublimation coloring book, and then you can put the binding back on just to keep that all in one place. So now that I've explained a little bit about this supply, let's go ahead and cover everything that I'll be sharing for this video today. So we are going to be starting with the Artesprix sublimation headband, and we are going to be I'm going to be using a mixed media paper, but you can also simply use copy paper. I have grabbed a couple sheets here because I'm going to be working with the paints, so I'm going to be doing some stamp offs and different things with that just to get excess ink off before I put it onto my mixed media paper. That is exactly what these coloring book pages are printed on, is copy paper. Nothing fancy. You don't need sublimation paper. Copy paper is all you need with the Artesprix sublimation products. Now I will also be using the sublimation markers. I'm going to make this unique and add a little bit to this as we go through and create our own design. Then I'm going to be using 3 paints in this video specifically, but they do have a selection of different colors. So I'm going to be creating a background with the blue paint, but I want to use the white lightning medium, and I'm going to lighten up that paint for the background a little bit. And then I might add in a little bit of sublimation black and use a sponge with that to give it a little bit of dimension and texture in that background. Then we're going to be using, pencil is great for tracing around your blank. That way you can create a template. I'll share how to do that, but pencil does not transfer to your sublimation blank, and it is a great way to sketch or to visualize your design on your page. You're going to need the Artesprix protective paper. This is siliconized paper that is going to protect your heat source from the sublimation ink. When the ink turns into a gas to transfer to your blank, you do not want that gas to get onto your heat source. You're going to protect it on the bottom and on the top with this siliconized paper. And then we're going to be using the Artesprix sublimation heat tape, specialized heat tape to withstand the high heat, which is going to be 400 degrees for this headband. We're going to press that at 45 seconds. Using other tapes, you can end up with a hot, sticky mess. So great thing to have on hand. And then other basic supplies, scissors. I'm going to be using these coloring pages, and I'm going to use some detail scissors to cut around them. And then since I'll be using paints, I have a selection of paintbrushes here, as well as a paint palette with that sponge that I showed you, and just some water over here on the side. I do have my Artesprix protective mat that I like to have on my surface when I pull my blanks, especially metal or hot plastics. When I pull those off of my heat source that is over here on the right, anytime there is something hot, I like to protect my workspace with the Artesprix protective mat. I think that is everything. I do have my Artesprix sublimation markers that have been sitting with the point down for about 20 minutes before I get started. You want to get that ink flowing, but you do want to store your markers at horizontal. And then when you go to use them, put them tipped down for about 20 minutes. I think that is everything. I'm going to get cleaned up here and we'll get ready to go. So the first thing we'll start with is we're just going to open the bag on the headband, and we can pull this out and then set that aside. And then I always take off the tag for this and set that aside as well. So now we have an idea of what our headband looks like. And if you do see any of these little remove the little bits if you see any of that debris on there, and then decide how you want your design. Now you could try to do a full wrap as well, so keep that in mind, but we're going to press one side at a time if you just do decide to do that. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to put the seam as the back, so that's going to be all on the back. And then what we're going to do is I folded that in half, you can see the seam there, and then I'm just going to simply trace around this in a rough outline. Pencil does not transfer to your blank, so we are good to go there. This gives us an idea, and it's a little bit wide, but that's okay. It's better to have your color outside of your lines. That way you're going to be able to cover the entire blank of your sublimation blank no matter what. Anything that is left white, as you will see here when we go to put these little ghost figures on, anything that's left white is going to remain white on your sublimation blank, or whatever color your sublimation blank is. Typically they are white because sublimation ink is transparent. So if you have some color that is on your sublimation blank, that color could show through whatever colors that you are putting onto your design. The first thing I'm going to do is, after I've done this, I'm going to set this aside so it doesn't get dirty. And I have my blank here. I am actually going to go ahead and I'm going to cut out pretty close around each of these using my detailed scissors. Now you don't need to watch the entire process, so I'm going to do a little bit of movie magic here. Pick and choose your designs and cut those out, and then I'm going to take some detail scissors and I'm going to cut even closer around them. Remember that anything that is left as white is going to remain white on your sublimation blank. Now, once I have all the designs cut out that I would like to, I had one that had a little bit of, I got too happy with the scissors and cut off a little top of his head there. So I just cut another one out for that, and I can use him for something else. But you'll need to decide on your layout, on how you want to do this. I want to keep everything in, for me, for this project, I want to keep everything on the top, and so that you can see all of those full ghosts. Now, what I can do is I can take a small piece of the heat tape and just roll these back. Keep in mind that anything that is white is going to remain white. And then I can just secure that down onto my blank, or onto my template space here. And then what I can do is I can take these markers. So I specifically pulled out the pink and the black one, and I can add a little bit of something to this. So first off, this one has a little bit of a tongue sticking out. So I'm just going to secure him down with a piece of heat tape, and we'll put him there. And then what I can do, and you want to make sure to get him as flat as possible, I can take my marker. I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper first and just get this marker scribbling. Remember that your sublimation inks are going to appear lighter, and they will brighten up with the high heat and temperature. So I'll just give him a little bit of color. This one I have a surprise for. With this one, what about this one? I could make a little, remember that everything is going to be flipped. So when you sublimate, it is reversed. So I'm going to just make a little bow over here, give it a little pink bow. And I can secure that one down with a little bit of heat tape. And you can add and make your designs unique however you see fit. For this one, I think I'm going to give him a little bow tie. There we go. And we'll secure them down. So I'm going to secure the rest of these down and then we'll move on to the background. And then you can add more if you want. Maybe I'll add a little bow up here to this one. It'll be on the other side. And I think that is good. I am going to grab my paint palette and I'm going to use the blue. I mentioned that the sublimation inks are lighter on your paper and then they will brighten up with the high heat and temperature of your press. I'm just going to add a little bit more color. I saw a white spot here. And the more that you add on top of it, the darker it will get on your page here. But once you add that heat and the pressure, that is when your true colors will show through and show up. So it will appear dull to start with. So I am just going to take some blue. I'm going to make like, my idea is to make like, that's way too much paint, but I will use this paper and I will paint it off, whatever excess I have. But I'm going to create like a night sky background is my idea. We will see if that comes out in how I work with this. Since I have too much, what I can also do is create a couple different shades of this. So let's work with that. This is not white sublimation paint. There is no white sublimation paint, as sublimation paint is transparent. This is a lightening medium, which means you can add it to any color to lighten it up and give it a different look. So you can create shades with it. You can also mix and match colors. And I'll make sure to link in the video description the supplies that are being used, as well as the color mixing chart. So in this one, I put 2 drops, and in this one, I put 1 of this lightening medium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the light one first, or the 1 drop, and mix that in together. And then I'll move over to the dark. Actually, this will be lighter. I did that backwards, but it'll still work. Not sure if you're going to be able to see it on camera or if it'll make that much of a difference, but we will see. Get that all mixed together, and that is quite a lot of paint that you probably don't need. But what we can do is, I already have the scribble mark down here. What I can do is I can just take my paper, and this is a good way to get it off of your brush after you're mixing too. And I keep all of these extras. If you've watched any of the Artesprix videos on YouTube, you'll see that I keep all the extras because you never know when you might want a background, and you can use these anytime afterwards. Just keep them in a dry location and they will still be able to be used for other blanks, other designs, different things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start painting on the background, but I'm going to avoid around the ghosts as much as I can. So they're going to kind of be the focal point, and I'm simply just adding some color around the background. We're going to cross our fingers and we're going to hope I can paint well enough not to get on top of the ghosts. But if you do, it's okay. It's handmade. So I'm going to go ahead and just start painting across the whole thing. You can use this as sort of a brush off, or you can also, if you just want to do like a kind of a background, a brush background like this to give it some texture or design, you can also do that. So you would brush off on a paper towel is a great thing to do. Just get a little bit on your paintbrush, brush it off, and then, because you can always add more, but it's hard to take away. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to paint my background, and we will come back for the next little part. Take your time, have fun with it. I just continued to work my way around on the design, and I did lift them up and kind of paint underneath them. The blue showed through a little bit, but ghosts are transparent, right? Now I did get a little bit of blue on one of these ghosts, but he's just flying through the night sky. So I just kind of gave it some movement. There is no wrong way. I'm not doing anything very particular, just seeing where it goes with me. So I have a lot of movement with these ghosts going different ways. Now what I can also do is add a little bit of different color. I could add some black in here and just kind of, I could either sponge it on or just dry brush it with the same technique. I think I have more control with the dry brush, and then I can add less, and if I want to add more in there afterwards, I can. So I'm just going to wash my brush out, and everything you can do can be different. I will also link in the video description to the Artesprix blog, where there are additional ideas for using the headbands and what you can create with those. I'm going to use the same technique here. Just get some paint on my brush and then brush off, and just kind of add some additional color in here for like a midnight sky. And I did kind of paint up underneath some of these just so that they didn't have stark white edges. There's still some edges here. That's okay. I might go in here and just add a little bit of dry brush underneath this one. Okay. And you could probably continue doing this for however long. Any excess paint you can take to a sheet of copy paper and simply make another background with it by using up the paint onto the copy paper. I always make sure to use up all my paint before I wash out my palette. There's no need to wash it down the drain. You might use that for a future project, or maybe the backside of your headband as well, if you want the full headband wrapped. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. The one thing you do want to make sure of when you go to assemble this, which we'll do next after I get rid of this excess paint, is you just want to make sure that when you apply this, that it's going to be dry and it's going to be flat. You don't want your little ghost to kind of fold up. As you can see, some of mine are curling, and that's just simply because of I'm using paint on the mixed media paper. So I'm just going to set this aside, let it dry, and I'm going to create a background here with the excess paint. And then I can use this for a future project. I'll just set it aside. I have a stack of these, all kinds of things that you can make. You could add luggage tags. You could break it up into smaller designs, key tags, wine charms. Check out the Artesprix sublimation blanks on the Artesprix website. They have quite a few that you can use, but you can also use other high quality sublimation blanks as well. So we'll just finish this up. And who knows what you'll see that used in a future video. So make sure to subscribe to the Artesprix YouTube channel for future inspiration, as well as check out the blog for lots of information. Once this is dry, you can cut it down a little bit to size, but I do want the excess. I did do my template a little bit big, which is great, but this will just make it easier for us to work with when we are positioning our blank. When you know that this is completely dry, grab that sublimation blank that you have secured. We're going to place this about even, so my seam is here, and then I can kind of place this. I want to make sure to get that top ghost completely where I have it placed. And then we're going to secure that with the heat tape. And you do want to secure this very, very well, because you want it to get as good of a seal between the sublimation print and your sublimation blank. So I just have the Artesprix sublimation tape on a tape dispenser here for easy access, especially on videos. and we're just going to secure that down. If you have any excess air that gets in between your sublimation print and your sublimation blank, that can cause what's called ghosting, which in this case, I don't know, it might be something that you're actually trying to do with your ghost headband. So yeah, bad humor. But let us know in the comments below what kind of headband you would create. Would you create it for a child, for a child's school event? There's all kinds of things. So I did grab the protective paper here. I'm just cutting 2 sheets down to size. I want to protect my entire workspace. And that's probably the loudest part of the process. So I'm going to take and make a sublimation sandwich. I'm going to lay a sheet of protective paper down, and I find if I lay it down against the curl, it makes it easier. And then I'm going to flip this over. So my sublimation blank is on the bottom. My sublimation print that I've just created is on top. And then I'm going to place a sheet of the protective paper on top. You want to make sure, and actually I'm going to switch these because this top sheet here is bigger than my bottom sheet. So I want to make sure to protect my surface on my heat press. Any gases that come out from the edges of this sublimation print when it is pressed, those gases, it turns into a gas, those gases could leave marks on your heat source if you do not protect it. So I have sublimation paper, I have my sublimation blank, I have my sublimation print, and then another sheet of my sublimation, and I got paint on that. So I'm going to tear that off. Don't want that on my press. And I have this sublimation sandwich ready to go. I'm going to move this exactly as it is over to my heat source. We are going to press this for 45 seconds at 400 degrees. And then we will come back for the reveal. Once my press sounds, I'm going to carefully release that and just kind of let that settle there. It is going to be very, very hot since it is at 400 degrees for that 45 seconds, especially when you're working with metals. You want to be very careful because those retain heat for a lot longer than something like fabric. I'm going to pull that off. It is now onto my Artesprix Sublimation Protective Mat, one of my most prized possessions. You'll hear me say that a lot in the videos. I use that a lot, not just for working with Artesprix, but anything that is heat related. Think of shrink plastic, anything that you're heating up, I use that sublimation mat for. So that's just a little bit of extra. You do not want to use your sublimation protective paper over again, especially, if we'll see here, if you have any ink transfer. Any ink transfer that you see on that and ink transfer that you may not see on that protective paper could transfer to your next project or to your heat source. So you do want to be very careful. So you do not want to reuse that. We're going to go ahead and let's check out this reveal. Those colors did brighten up. And we have our sublimation headband with our night sky background. Let's get all this tape off. It likes to stick. It was very well stuck, which is a good thing. And we have our sublimation headband with our little bow tie guy and our little pink hair bow, little pink tongue. You've got the movement of the different colored background. We have some different colors of that blue that we took the regular blue paint. We used the lightning medium and we lightened that up because I knew that the blue was a bit of a darker color once it was pressed. So we went ahead and did that with the lightning medium and changed the color of that a little bit. You can also see based on the dry brush technique how the colors change and you have some gradients there. So here's a look at the finished photos. Make sure to check out the links below this video for additional resources as well as all of the supplies used in this video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.